Welcome back to Before You Vote. Joining us now is a Republican candidate for the United States Senate, Kari Lake. Thanks again.
Good to be here.
It seems like,
usually we're on the phone.
We are usually on the phone. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate you coming down to the studio.
No, thank you for putting this together. It's important that people know who they're voting for.
Yeah, and I think let's start there. Let's start with this Senate race because there is such a contrast between you and your opponent. Lay out for me the biggest issues in your mind that voters are concerned about and the difference in how you'd handle them.
Well, let's start with the border and the economy, because I think the two actually go hand in hand. We obviously have a wide open border here in Arizona. Everyone knows that. We've seen it. We've seen the thousands and thousands of people coming across our border, taking jobs, driving wages down. They're also causing crime in many cases. We know now that Venezuela has indeed emptied out prisons and insane asylums and are sending really dangerous people here. So that's a huge issue. It plays into the economy as well, because now we have 18 million people by some estimations who we have to compete with for housing and services. And they're driving down wages because they're willing to work for less. And of course they can, because the government's providing them housing. They're providing them debit cards with cash on them for groceries and things that they need at our expense. So those two go hand in hand. We got to turn around the economy and the border. We're going to do that starting on day one with President Trump in the office and in the Oval Office and me in the Senate. And we can't count on Ruben Gallego to do that. He's the reason why we have these problems. Remember, he called it the dumb, stupid border wall and said he would never, ever, ever put any money into it. Now he's going out and running 62 million in ads so far, him and his friends, trying to act like he cares about the border when he's done nothing except encourage an open border, support sanctuary cities, and vote for people here illegally to not only become permanent citizens, but have voting rights and be able to vote in this upcoming election. The American people don't want that. It'll be the end of America if we allow that. When it comes to the economy, really quickly, he voted for the Inflation Reduction Act. It should be the Inflation Production Act, because it actually caused the highest inflation that we've probably seen in our lifetimes. And that's the reason that nobody can afford anything. That's one of the reasons that we've seen rent prices almost double in some locations. Tucson, Mesa, and Phoenix have had one of the highest areas where the rent has gone up the most in the whole country. And this is one of the reasons people can't afford anything, and people are having to go to food banks now to get by because they don't have enough money just for the basics.
On the border issue, the frustration is, and I've played this on the radio show a number of times, just a few years ago, Chuck Schumer gave this speech about how we stop things, and he wouldn't even use the phrase undocumented because it said it proves the Senate's not serious about fixing the problem, and he's done a 180. So how do you work in that body to get enough people on board to get something done in the Senate? H.R. 2's been sitting in the Senate for a year and a half. How do you move that body along?
I'm glad you mentioned the semantics of it really quickly, because my opponent has done nothing for the border except push a piece of legislation that forbids the use of the word illegal alien, which is in most of our federal documents. That's how they've been referred to, aliens, undocumented aliens, illegal aliens. And that's what he cares about, changing the words we're allowed to use, censoring us from using words. He doesn't care about the open border. How would we do it? I believe that both Democrats and Republicans want to do something about it now. The policy that was put forth, the one that you called bipartisan, was a terrible border policy. Everybody who looked closely at it realized it was just going to codify and cement into law the terrible plan that we have right now, which is open borders for all. It was really, in my opinion, and many others, a disguised funding plan to send an additional $95 billion over to Ukraine, rolled up in a bill that was talking about our border. We want border security. We don't want it wrapped up. In order to give us border security in our country, we have to give another 115 billion away to start wars overseas. That's not what the American people want. We want a clean bill to fully fund the border wall. We're going to get that started on day one. Fully fund and expedite the construction of the border wall. And Mike, in order to save our country, we got to send these people who've poured in during the Biden invasion back to their homeland. If we want to save our homeland, they got to go back to their homeland. So we will start the largest repatriation operation and send people back to their homeland. These people are unvetted. We have more terrorists inside our own borders right now. I shouldn't even use the word border, because frankly, we don't have a border, inside our own country right now than we ever have. And we've seen what they're capable of by what happened on October 7th. in Israel, which was the most barbaric thing I think I've ever seen in my life. Those same people are right here in our country. And Ruben Gallego's okay with that. This is a very clear election, just as it is for president. Do you want more of this nightmare situation, or do you want to get back to an America that we recognize, one where we have a strong economy for all Arizonans, all Americans, one where we have a secure border, where we know who's coming in, where we have legal immigration but not rampant illegal immigration, where we have strong schools, police that are supported, fully funded, and fully staffed so we can take on the crime that's soaring on our streets.
I always appreciate the time. I know you're very busy. I appreciate you laying things out for us, and I wish you the best.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, we'll be back here in just a moment.